it's me again, Natasha from Helping to Reconnect, and my fiance, Christian. We're going to talk about a pretty important topic today. We're going to talk about communication, and I'm going to go through a communication tool that I always give the couples in my sessions, a tool that they can bring home so that they can have important discussions with their partner. I'm kind of throwing this on Christian. So he's actually never heard of this communication tool. I think maybe in like passing by, I've mentioned it to him, but I've never actually went through it with him. And the reason for that is I always say in my relationship, I don't want to be like teaching my partner, because I'm a firm believer that when you're in a relationship, you're not like educating one another in a sense of like, this is how our relationship is. Because I'm not his counselor. I'm an equal to him, or at least I hope he feels that way. So we're going to go through that tool. So the acronym is PDEASY. So the P in PDEASY is prepare. We're obviously not doing that because we're doing that on a video, but prepare is, I tell the couple, take one thing that you want to talk about in the discussion, and only one thing. So it could be the chores in the home. It could be taking the dog for a walk. It could be whatever it is, something that you are bothered by that your partner's doing, or something that's irritating you, or something that's on your mind that you want to discuss, but only one thing per person. And prepare what you want to talk about on that topic, and give the other person the topic beforehand so that they know what they're getting into walking into the discussion, rather than kind of just giving them like a surprise attack on, I don't like that you do this or whatnot. So
where was my prepare?
I told you what the topic was going to be. I told him the topic. And then after the P is ask. Ask, when is a good time to talk? So I did ask you when is a good time to do the video.
Yes, you did.
But ask when is a good time to talk. And that's because a lot of people kind of throw arguments when they really shouldn't be talked about, like when somebody's doing the dishes, or somebody's cooking, or somebody's walking the dog, rather than saying, I have something important to discuss that takes your full attention. So let's sit down tonight, or let's sit down tomorrow and really pay our full attention to discussing this. And then the D is describe. So that's where we're kind of going to start. So describe is, what's the facts? I don't care about how you feel right now at this point, but we have to agree on the facts of what happened. So I'm going to bring up one. And I hope that Christian knows that we're talking about communication, and he knows we're talking about defensiveness, but he doesn't know what example I'm going to bring up. So this is kind of like I'm putting him a little bit on the spot. So Christian, I don't know if you remember when we were talking about cars, and you were saying like having two cars for you was like a necessity, or not a necessity. I forget how you worded it. You said that it's not that you were like spending a lot of money on cars, or spending extravagantly, because your one car was like 18 years old, right? So you were saying it was like more of like not an investment, because cars never are an investment, but whether you got a Honda or whether you got a BMW or whatever it is, you made it last for 18 years. So it's not like you were spending extravagantly. You're trying to prove to me like I don't spend for no reason.
Right.
Like I'm pretty good with finances.
I remember that. Yeah.
So do you agree on what I'm talking about? Do you remember the conversation?
I do.
We agree on the facts?
Yes.
Step one, we agreed on the fact. Now I'm going to express how I feel about the fact. So I don't know if you remember during that discussion, just because we disagreed, because I was saying like you spend a little bit more than I do. I felt like you became really defensive when I brought up the topic. Like you just wanted to defend yourself rather than actually like hearing me out. Like you didn't really want to hear what I had to say, because you were already kind of trying to like protect yourself.
Right.
So in the express, so the best thing, and he doesn't know to do this, but I'm going to tell him to, the best thing that he can do is paraphrase. So repeat what I said to him to make sure that I feel heard. So kind of summarize what I said to you.
So, okay, I got you. That is pretty important. I mean, I remember you saying that, you felt like it was an extravagant expenditure to have two cars. So I could have maybe repeated that back to you.
But now, like maybe express to you how I just expressed to you like how I felt. I felt like you became defensive, right? And I felt like you weren't really hearing me out. So maybe like repeating to me that you're hearing what I'm saying in this moment right now.
So I hear that you think that I'm becoming defensive and that I'm not listening to you, but I am. And then I maybe bring forward my points.
Exactly. So then Christian will express how he feels.
In terms of that. Do you
Yeah.
want me to right now, on
Right
the
now.
spot?
Right now.
So, while I understand where you're coming from and what you're saying, I feel as though it wasn't extravagant because of my reasons, and then I would lay them out to you. The reasons I gave you at the time, and they're still the reasons I stand by, are just that I would have gotten nothing to get rid of that car. It wouldn't have made any sense for me to get rid of that car, and I needed a new
He's
car.
becoming defensive again.
Maybe.
I'm not talking about the
Maybe.
topic, so this is where I'm going to explain to you, and he doesn't know what I'm doing. That's why
No, I
it's
have
kind
no
of
idea.
like, when I say express how you feel about me telling you that I feel like sometimes you become defensive. And that was like an example of you becoming defensive sometimes. So that was one example of, I feel like sometimes, like in a couple of disagreements that we've had, you become defensive. And that was just one example.
Right.
So how do you feel about that? Like me saying to you that I feel like sometimes you become defensive.
I guess it makes me a little bit self-conscious. It
Okay.
makes me more aware of myself, and maybe take a second to really think about what it is that I'm saying prior to saying it. I know that my defensiveness tends to be, or could be, given the topic, a trigger to having like an argument or something that may, not blow up, but become more than it needs to. So I guess the defensiveness is not necessary. And it makes me kind of think more about what I'm saying, rather than just instinctively be like, oh, well, you're saying that, so I don't agree with you, therefore I'm going to become defensive. You know what I'm saying?
So you feel like you're trying to like work on that, or you feel like you're trying to
Definitely,
not become
definitely.
defensive?
I think that's one thing that I've learned in our time together, and especially during a pandemic where it forces two people to really be together a lot more than they normally would. It makes me kind of really think about what it is that I want to say, but also put more of an emphasis on making you know that you're being heard. I think that makes a huge difference in the outcome of the discussion. The moment you know that I've heard you, then that validates your point. It validates kind of what you're saying to an extent of, okay, he heard what I'm saying. Now let's hear what he has to say.
Right. I think what he's trying to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it seems like once I feel heard, you know that I'm more willing to hear you.
Right.
But as soon as like you become defensive, or I feel like I'm not heard,
Right.
then the conversation automatically doesn't go well. Like it kind of just shuts down, because then
For sure.
if I don't feel heard, then I'm not as willing to kind of hear you out. And just by validating that you heard me, and this is an important point that I make to couples, just by him validating that he heard me isn't necessarily saying he agrees with me, but it's just important for me to feel heard and understood. And we can still disagree with one another,
Yep.
right? It's just about respecting each other. So that was the express of Padizi. And then the S is specify. I think we did a pretty good job of it. Specify means just like stay on topic. So don't talk about 10 other issues that you guys might have, but figure out that one issue and get it solved. Because if we sit here and talk about 10 different issues that you might have in a relationship, you're not really solving anything. You're just kind of bitching at one another. I didn't say that online. Complaining to one another. Which isn't nice, right? Because then the other person is automatically going to go in defense mode or attack mode. If I just sat here and brought up like
That's
5 things that I was upset at you about or didn't like, you'd probably be like, what the hell? Like, do I do anything right?
For sure. And you lack focus too, because you don't really, it's not constructive. Like you've just outlined
Exactly.
a laundry list of things, and you haven't really solved the problem that you came to the conversation with in the first place.
Exactly. And then the last part of Padizi is invite. So invite it means, we're pretty good at it, not to boast or anything like that, but invite just means make sure that both you and your partner are getting to talk in the conversation. So sometimes in some couples that I see, one person tends to dominate the conversation and it's more like a monologue than a dialogue. A conversation is between two people, not just you lecturing the person. So it's kind of being mindful of that. And I always tell people, if you're going on for more than like 2 or 3 minutes, the other person's not really hearing it because it's not giving them time to respond. So if you're feeling like they're cutting you off, maybe you're going on for too long. Or if they're cutting you off when it's only been 30 seconds or a minute, then it's really trying to explain to them, don't be a combative listener, as I call it. Don't be like thinking about what you're going to say when your partner's trying to express what they're saying. Listen to them and then take a minute to respond. rather than kind of thinking about just what you're going to respond. So thank you for joining us today. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah.
And maybe you learned a thing or two. Maybe not.
It feels sprung up on, but hey, it was good. It was good.
Take care, guys, and have a good day.
See you guys.